Now these old cameras hooked up to the officer's radio through this cord here, and it took 60 seconds to start recording once this button was pressed. Now the new cameras are wireless, still hook up to the officer's radio, and they start recording right on cue. Now there isn't much left of the Lena Whitmore Park playground, and they want to install 5 new pieces of equipment, all ADA accessible, considering there are no ADA accessible parks within a 100-mile radius of Moscow. This biochar is created from agricultural and forestry green waste, and once it's turned into fertilizer, it can store carbon for up to 200 years, addressing agricultural and environmental issues now and later. Well, Tim, speaking of presidents, GOP presidential candidate and best-selling piñata Donald Trump shocked the political world last week when he declined to participate in the Fox News Republican debate, citing his ill feelings towards moderator Megyn Kelly. Here to share her overwhelming disappointment is our very own Bailey Sims. Welcome, Bailey. Money can't buy happiness. Oh wait, yes it can. According to a study from Cambridge University, those who spend more money on things that coincide with their personality traits are happier the more they spend. The Republicans' tax plan would make postgraduate education even more expensive than it already is, which in turn would deter bright students from pursuing higher degrees just because they can't afford it. The Latah County Sheriff's Office is in the process of updating their body cameras to curb technological shortcomings. It's the first time they've been upgraded since they began using body cameras in 2007. Lieutenant Brandon Jordan says they just got tired out.
The battery life started to fade on the older cameras. You know, they're getting a little bit long in the tooth, and the batteries weren't holding up. And technology has advanced quite a bit since we started using them 10 years ago.
Now these old cameras hooked up to the officer's radio through this cord here, and it took 60 seconds to start recording once this button was pressed. Now the new cameras are wireless, still hook up to the officer's radio, and they start recording right on cue. The new cameras can be left on standby for up to 72 hours and have 32 gigabytes of space, which means they can record for 10 continuous hours. Deputy Brandon DeMeyer says their overall quality helps him on patrol.
The new cameras have much better picture quality in them. And where you see the biggest difference is at night. So whereas with these you couldn't see as well at night, you can see faces clearly with these.
Body cameras are especially useful as evidence in court.
We're going to have more reliable, consistent video and audio recordings of whatever the deputies are dealing with on the street. And as you can imagine, that's really important because it eliminates a lot of the who said what.
Brooke Wolford, Murrow News 8. Professor Greg Mueller and his team earned a top 10 spot at the George Barley Water Prize competition for their water filtration system, NewTech.
We can dose in a carbon substrate. We call it biochar.
This biochar is created from agricultural and forestry green waste, and once it's turned into fertilizer, it can store carbon for up to 200 years, addressing agricultural and environmental issues now and later. Dirty water is mixed with biochar, which is like charcoal, to destroy most toxic pollutants. The reaction removes nitrogen and phosphorus by bonding it to the biochar, which creates fertilizer to address crop needs and store carbon.
Biochar is principally carbon. The problems of CO2 emissions into the atmosphere and the increasing carbon in the atmosphere, we really need to come up with some technologies to try to take some of that back out of the atmosphere and store it.
It's that self-awareness about our contributions to the different problems and what we can do to control our responses and what we're doing that makes an impact on others and how their needs are being met.
NewTech is potentially the first water treatment process in the world to be carbon negative. In other words, it removes more carbon from the atmosphere than it produces. Brooke Wolford, Murrow News 8.